Dudes and dudettes, how are you guys? This is Chazzy and welcome back to Cinema Chazzy, the segment on this channel where I review movies that I watch from all kinds of different eras, whether classic or modern, animation, traditional live action, what have you, and because I have been starting to play FIFA 22 on my channel lately, I'm going to be leaving a link to the first gameplay right here, because at this point I'm pretty sure there is just one, maybe there's two, but I'm going to leave a link to the first one there and maybe link to the playlist, I don't know. So I started to play a little bit of FIFA and also I did a vlog about a player called Ronaldo, and it's the first gameplay of many in the FIFA playlist and the first player profile vlog of many, or just a few, so I figured what better way to, continue the trend and then review a movie about this very sport, By the way, I'm aware that in a lot of parts of the world, like in Europe, this sport is called football, but in the United States it's called soccer, and because I'm trying to cater more to an American audience and I do speak American English, I'm going to just call it soccer, okay? If you don't like it, let me just right off the bat say that I do not care, okay? But anyway, so here's the thing. Today's movie is one that I've actually done quite a few years ago, but I didn't really like the way it came out, and so I'm remaking it today and not wearing the same shirt. I am wearing my Chelsea jersey right here this is from back in the 2014 season, when they were still Samsung. This is one of my favorite jerseys back when I was an avid Chelsea supporter, I used to support different soccer clubs around the world in different countries, but now I just support Fluminense, it makes more sense to have just one, but I still do sympathize a lot with Chelsea, if I was an Englishman in a different life, I would definitely support them, So today's movie has ties with the Premier League because I'm going to be talking about Goal, The Dream Begins. This is a very underrated movie in the sporting world because especially if you're a fan of soccer, because it deals with something that we don't really see a lot explored in the cinematic universe, It was released back in 2005 and follows the story of a player called Santiago I was about to say Santiago Bernabeu, the Real Madrid home stadium. Santiago Munez, who I believe is from Mexican descent, and he gets the opportunity to train for and play for Newcastle United in the Premier League, so we follow his journey, from, living in an impoverished area, playing soccer with his buddies in the field, and having to really scrape by, making very little money, trying to help his dad keep the family afloat, I do believe he lives with his father, his grandmother, and his younger brother, and the movie goes on to show him, overcoming all these obstacles and finally making it to the English game, which of course is a lot tougher than it looks. And there were two sequels. Maybe I will review because I only watched the first two. The third one I got a few minutes in and it just sucked. I never finished it. It has to do with World Cup and stuff, but the first movie is amazing. I like it so much, and it was critically acclaimed, although it had the problem is that it didn't really gross as much as the budget. It had a budget of $33 million, which is pretty unprecedented for a movie of this stature, and unfortunately it went on to gross $27.6 million at the box office, so it wasn't exactly a good recoup on investment. However, the movie is notable for being very sponsored by Adidas, because it was kind of there was a collaboration between the movie studio and FIFA. It was actually, hold on a second, let me see if I can find it here. It was distributed by Buena Vista International, and they did a collaboration with FIFA, so there were a lot of there were the FIFA Pro likenesses of real players and teams, you actually see real athletes in the movie and stuff, they splice it up with actual footage from games that happen in real life, so that was really nice. And Adidas actually, reportedly, they contributed $50 million to the marketing benefits, so they poured in so much money there, so the marketing campaign could be much more, how can I say, much more, let's say, strong, I guess just make it simple. And at the time, it was the biggest deal between a corporate brand and a film production, so yeah, I guess you can kind of understand why the movie was so heavily, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so I liked it a lot. The story is really amazing, the character development, and the overall plot details, very simple to follow, easy to understand, and if you're a fan of the sport like I am, it just grows on you more and more, So before I get into that, a little bit of the plot and the characters, let's take a look at a clip here from the movie.
In the city of dreams,
Santiago, what are you doing?
Santiago Munez had a day job and a night job.
Hey, boss. I've been at Buena for 6 months. Why can't I be a waiter?
This Chinese restaurant. You're not Chinese.
Quiet!
Alrighty, so let's continue. If you guys notice a slight change in the lighting here, it's because I have to close my window, because just when I sit down to record, the lighting looks good, the damn wind starts blowing in and ruins the take, so I just had to close that there. I don't know if it's going to affect the lighting too much, but maybe it will. So anyway, now let's get into a little bit of the synopsis, right? I'm going to be borrowing heavily from the synopsis here that I have open on Wikipedia, because it's been a while since I've seen this movie, years perhaps. Many of the movies that I review on this channel, I rarely get the chance to watch again beforehand, you know, so, and some are first timers. I watch the movie just once and then review, you know, so you'll forgive me for cheating a little bit, you know. I know it's a cop-out, but it's the best that I can do. So Santiago is an undocumented immigrant living in Los Angeles, you know, and he actually works two jobs. He's a gardener with his dad with the family business, and is also working in a Chinese restaurant as a busboy, you know. So one day he's playing a little local match with his buddies, you know, like I said before, and then Glenn Foy, who is actually a scout from England, you know, he goes there to find him and sees him playing, and he thinks that he would be a really good fit for Manchester United, right? So then, actually, no. He is a former player and scout for Newcastle United, so he thinks Santiago is going to be a good fit there, you know. So he gives him his card, the credentials, he wants him to go there and try out, but Santiago needs to save up the money for it, you know. So he does. He actually he saves as much money as he can, but his father is dismissive of it, so he takes his money and buys a truck, you know. He really doesn't take his son's dream seriously. So then his grandmother sneaks him some money so he can go there for the tryout, you know, without his dad knowing. He gets there, all goes well, but the thing is that Santiago has a few issues, you know. For one thing, he's a hothead, you know. He does stay with Glenn for a while, you know, to try to develop a little bit of patience and sportsmanship, you know. But then, you know, throughout the tryouts, you know, at first he's a little unimpressive, but he does start to slowly adapt to the game. However, he hides the fact that he has asthma from the club, especially the nurse whose name is Roz, you know. He hides that because he thinks it's going to hurt his chance of getting signed. So he gets a 1-month extension to actually train there, you know, and try to understand more how the English game works, because it's a lot more difficult than you would think. And then, you know, as it keeps going, you know, he doesn't get along with every single player, but he does form a friendship with two of them, you know, one of which is Jamie, who's another player on trial, and then this other one whose name I forgot, Gavin Harris, you know, played by this actor who I like him so much I forgot his name. So he does form relationships, you know, but then before actually playing a reserve match, the other player that he doesn't like steps on his inhaler, you know, so he can't treat it. Then during the game he starts to get short of breath, and that makes it so the scouts don't want to give him too much of a chance, you know. And this is what the movie plays around with, you know. It shows the turmoil that it takes on him, not just as an athlete but as a person, you know, completely abandoning everything, you know, his home and his folks and his lifestyle just to go for a chance to play professional soccer, you know. And he actually, we see that he does form a good friendship with a few of the players, you know, eventually going on to bunk with one of them, you know, Gavin, because they're also trying to, Gavin is more of an undisciplined player, you know, he's kind of wild and rowdy, you know, but still, he does kind of form a little bit of a nice attacking duo with Santiago at one point, you know. So then Newcastle eventually lets Santiago go. However, you know, once he is going to the airport to go back home, that's when Gavin picks him up and they actually become roommates, you know. So then he tells the club about this and they start to seek treatment for his asthma, which does eventually work. And very slowly he starts to learn the fundamentals of soccer in England and starts to evolve more to adapt to Newcastle style of playing, you know. And the next match that he plays is actually much better. And eventually he does make a debut for the senior team playing against Fulham. And then, now here's the thing, eventually he takes a penalty that earns them the win. He converts it and they win, you know. The movie is very creative here because they take real life matches that actually happen, you know, in the Premier League, and they modify it, you know, they manipulate the results. So in this game, Newcastle may not have won, but Santiago wins in the movie, you know. Then we find out that his dad was in a bar actually watching the game, very proud of him, you know. That's really cool. He finally saw that his son is achieving his dreams, so very proud of him for that. Then eventually it goes on. Eventually he actually starts to date the nurse, you know, Roz, who is actually from, I think, Wales or Scotland. She has a very distinct accent from one of those, you know. Very sweet girl, very helpful to him as well, not just as a nurse but just an amazing partner. And you know, eventually after that, his father actually suffers a heart attack and dies. You know, Santiago finds out about this, you know. I do believe it is this is actually before, this is after Santiago goes partying with Gavin and it ends up in the sun, you know, which the manager doesn't like. And then the other dude, Jamie, who's also his friend, suffers an injury that ends his career, so Santiago has to kind of pick up the slack a little bit, you know, and the layers just keep going. And then that's later when we find out about the heart attack, you know, but instead of flying home, he actually stays there to train because they're going to play a match against Liverpool now. And so Santiago, you see, Newcastle takes an early lead, and the pressure really gets to Santiago, you know, because he was selected to start as a first player, no, not a substitute. So they play the game, and this is where the film, you know, kind of takes liberties with it, you know, because they eventually start to play well, and it is drawn, but they can't. It's drawn 2-2, but if it's a draw, Newcastle will not qualify for the UEFA Champions League final, the UEFA Champions League, you know, which I don't think ever happened in real life. That's why I said they take liberties with it. So then they set up a fictional free kick, which Santiago takes and converts, and they win 3-2. And then it's an emotional celebration, you know, partying going all around and stuff. And then he finds out, he gets a phone call saying that his dad saw his game against Fulham before he died. So that kind of gets him fired up, you know, he gets all happy and celebrates that even more. And it's nice, a very nice and touching moment, you know. Very interesting how they changed the result, you know, in movie time. But to me, it would have been better if they just went with the real result and just kind of tried to insert a player there, but that's fine. Anyway, so now let's take a little break here and look at another clip from the movie.
But every other moment, he lived for the game.
He's quite a player. What's your name, son?
Santiago Muñez.
If you get yourself to England, Newcastle United will give you a trial.
That's a big club.
Very big club.
It's okay to have dreams, son, but people like us have to work for a living.
There's always plan B. We win the lottery.
Now, here's the thing. This opinion of mine here might be very unpopular because it seems like a lot of the criticism in this film was directed towards the performance of Kuno Becker, you know. I guess maybe nobody really enjoyed his acting, but honestly, I actually thought he kind of nailed it, you know, because especially if you watch the sequel. The sequel in terms of screenplay was a little weaker than the first one, but still the cinematography was a little better, although the editing kind of sucked, you know, because the first movie has that underdog story where, you know, he comes from nowhere and rises through the ranks and becomes a professional. Then the sequel has him, you know, going to a much bigger club and his ego gets the better of him. But the first one was unique because it told a story that very few films did at the time, you know, at least within this sport. We have seen movies, you know, talking about that have the same kind of general story, you know, with American football, and then there's soccer, you know, there's even some movies about golf and baseball, and there was one about golf that kind of sucked with Shia LaBeouf. But the point is that this movie, in my opinion, is very it's very unprecedented. It's unique in its aspect because I have not seen many cinematic dramas involving soccer, you know. So, you know, to me it was really nice the way that they depicted the process of actually training, you know, and undergoing the rigorous trial in the Premier League, because it is one of the toughest leagues in the world, if not the toughest, you know. So showing that, you know, I actually thought it was very well portrayed in that aspect, you know. I think that they did really well showing how it works, you know, even though going to sort of like a mid-tier club, you know, because if it was more focused on Manchester United or Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City, you know, or maybe you know, Liverpool itself, you know, one of the bigger clubs, it would have had a much more, it would have been tougher to depict, you know. Newcastle is right there in the middle, you know. They're not too low, not too high, they're just perfectly right there, you know. And actually the movie, despite being heavily criticized, you know, it did gather a cult following and actually boosted Newcastle in popularity, you know. So I actually liked it a lot, you know, and showing the psychological effects that training for a team can have on an athlete, you know, somebody who came from pretty much nowhere, you know, a very impoverished Mexican upbringing, playing ball with a few people here and there and being really good, and then suddenly making it to the big leagues where he is automatically, you know, relegated down, you know, almost like in a junior league, you know, because Santiago Muñez, the character, plays well. He's really good at ball handling, you know, and scoring, but when you get to the Premier League, it's a whole different thing. You know, there is a moment where the coach even says, maybe you're just not cut out for the English game, son, you know. So now the thing is that Kuno Becker, I think, really acted well because he's Mexican, so he's more known for acting, you know, over in telenovelas in Mexico, and a lot of television over there and soap operas and stuff, you know. So I have never seen anything from him besides the first 2 Goal movies, you know, and he briefly appeared in Goal 3, but it was like kind of like a passing glance, a cameo, you know. I don't remember. I only watched a little bit. I don't remember him actually having a more important role. But the point is that I think that he really, because it's not supposed to be a professional actor giving off an Oscar-worthy performance. It's supposed to show a guy playing an athlete who's really in turmoil and is very nervous and kind of, you know, he is a hothead. He can get really rough. He's kind of rough around the edges, but you know, it kind of shows him going from a humble figure to somebody much more confident, you know, where of course the sequel tackles more of his arrogance and his overconfidence, you know, and kind of like lashing out at people, but still, I really liked it, showing him transitioning there, you know, to England and bunking with Gaffy, you know, forming a friendship there. So, and becoming a first team, a very important player, you know. So I personally think it was really cool, you know. And Alessandro Nivola playing Gavin, I remembered his name, you know. I completely remembered. I did not just look it up here, I promise. I remembered from my head, you know. He also played Billy in Jurassic Park 3 and also the Sensei in The Art of Self-Defense. You might have heard of him, you know. So playing like this Crash kind of wild and goofy character who doesn't really seem to take soccer too seriously, you know, was the perfect Foley, the perfect counterbalance there to Santiago, you know. And Roz, played by Anna Frial, the nurse, you know, very good performance. You know, though she's a firecracker. I really liked her, showing off her sweet side, but also a little bit of her, you know, her fiery, how can I say, she's basically, she's not the kind of girl who's like a daffodil and just lays down, you know, being yelled at, you know. She is also very rough, and I like that too. So yeah, the cast was pretty okay, nothing to complain about there, you know. Depicting life in England over in Newcastle, you know, the city where the team was playing their matches, you know. The atmosphere in the actual matches, you know. I really like the way that the cinematography shows, you know, like mixing actual real life matches and the atmosphere to showing the narrators talking, you know, in the cabin and the supporters, you know. They basically turn every single soccer match into a cinematic marvel, you know. So I really like that a lot. The cinematography was on point in the editing as well, you know, the way they spliced in the actors into actual moments in the game. That to me was really cool. And I'm going to be getting into a little bit more of the personal side now, and before that I am going to show you guys yet another clip here from the movie.
He's jet-lagged, nervous. He's never seen mud before.
Maybe you don't have the stamina for the English game.
Adios, and there you go. I'll be better tomorrow, I promise.
It's not gonna be a tomorrow, Santiago.
He's grown up in poverty and hardship, and his only way out is his skill with the ball.
Bonez, just wanted to see what it felt like to be in this field.
You think you deserve it?
I know I do.
Okay, now let's get into the review section, right? Starting off with Rotten Tomatoes, who actually, they would go on to give the film an approval rating of 42% based on 83 reviews, which I think is just really unfair, you know? They basically gave it an average score of 5.20 out of 10, and Metacritic, you know, did them one better or worse, you know, because the film has a weighted average score of 53 out of 100 over there right now, which is just BS, you know? And then, because there were reviews from 90 critics that gave it kind of like mixed or average, you know, which really sucks. And then, also, there were audiences polled by CinemaScore who gave the film an average grade of like about, you know, an A, from an A plus to an F scale, you know. So from A plus to F, they gave it an A, so it was pretty liked. And Kuno's performance was criticized but also praised by a few other sources, you know, because it gave us a character who had a lot of likability, you know, somebody that people could relate to, especially if you're a minority, you know, if you're an immigrant yourself. And I think it was really nice the way that they included this actor here, because you could have just gotten an American actor who looks Mexican or something, but getting an actual Mexican actor, you know, from the same background, who does speak English and had up until that point made very few movies, you know, produced in English, you know. So I think that he kind of resonated more with audiences, and the movie did become more popular when it released straight to video, you know. Sorry, when it reached DVD, because the sales actually skyrocketed and put it to gold status, you know. So yes, and also Variety.com called it a slickly mounted slice of can-do nonsense, which is really unfair. That's BS. BBC Film called it a fantasy, and then the UEFA perspective did actually call it brilliant, but then again, UEFA related to soccer, so it does make sense, you know. But anyway, so now me personally, the movie was not perfect, far from it, you know. It did hit all of the right beats, but it was lacking a little bit in the action. I guess maybe just, if they showed us a little bit more action on the field and tried to flesh out a little bit more the main character, you know, and give him just a bit more of depth, you know, adding a few more layers to the relationships, because a few of the things did seem to be a lot of yada yada, you know. There was some instances that I thought were kind of unnecessary, like when they went to party, you know, and then the manager got pissed because it was in the newspaper, you know. There were a few scenes that seemed kind of unnecessary, you know, and I don't know, establishing the backstory was nice and everything was okay. The story was very well written, but I still think that and also the editing sequences where you're trying to create things happening in a match that didn't really happen in real life, that was a little annoying to see at times, you know. So this movie is just going to barely scrape off a 10 out of 10. I'm not going to give it a perfect rating, you know, but it did well to deserve a 9 out of 10. That is my final rating, you know, because it's not perfect, you know, but it was still very entertaining, very true to source in the real life material, you know. And as a soccer fan myself, I watched this movie for the first time when I was like almost obsessed with soccer, very in love with it. Today I just kind of like it. I occasionally watch it, you know. It's not like the main sport in my life right now, but back then it really was cool. If I had reviewed this movie back then, it would have probably gotten a 10 out of 10, but it's not gonna do that there, you know. And for the final as the final nail in the coffin here, in 2021, last year, Manchester, wow, they wish, Newcastle United actually did sign a player whose name is Santiago Munez, you know, an actual Mexican-American striker, you know, and it's just amazing, you know, the similarity to the film there, you know. I just wanted to share that with you guys there, you know. I thought it was a really cool tidbit of info, you know, and he actually does play right now. He was born in Texas, but he is from Mexican descent. He does play right now. He's 20, so he's on loan actually, and also he plays for the Mexico national team, the under-17. That's I don't think he is under-17 right now. He just plays. But anyway, so yes, that's it, guys. If you have never heard of this movie and you've never watched it, well, you gave yourself a bunch of spoilers. You know, I always try to warn you guys about this, but then again, it says reviews, so I don't even need to tell you that there are going to be spoilers. But if you've never seen this movie, don't sit on it. I have no idea where the hell you can stream this, on what platform it's available on, but it's definitely worth a watch, you know, especially if you're a fan of soccer. And even if you're not, I'm pretty sure you can enjoy it just as much as somebody who does, you know. And that's it, guys. Maybe I will review the sequels, you know. The second one, which I did watch, it was kind of okay, not as good, but still might be worth a review here. The third one, I'm gonna have to find a way to watch again because I never really finished it. So yeah, let's see how that's gonna go. But anyway, guys, if you happen to enjoy this video, please go ahead and give it a like, and also subscribe to my channel because I release videos every single day. And while you're at it, good lord, freaking birds, while you're at it, hit the notification bell too so you can know exactly what time I upload, because it's videos every single day like I just said, but the birds distracted me. And stay tuned for more content related to soccer because it's a bunch of FIFA related stuff, you know, from here until almost my 900th. Alright guys, and that's it. This is Chazzy signing out for now, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Roll the outro screen.
From Touchstone Pictures,
It is now quite a day for this young man.
one man's extraordinary journey
That's my son.
That's my boy, Santiago.
is about to begin. Kuno Becker. Goal. The dream begins this spring.